This happened in the fall of 2019 when I was driving home after visiting my sister in Nebraska. It was around 2:30 a.m., and I had decided to take the state highway instead of the interstate to save time. Big mistake. Fog had started to form around midnight. Thick and low, the kind that makes the lines on a road disappear under your headlights. I'd been driving for almost 4 hours, and fatigue was starting to take its toll. But I only had about 40 minutes to go. I could make it. The radio had lost signal for miles, leaving me only with a hum of the engine and the occasional scrape of tires against the gravel shoulder. I hadn't seen another car in at least an hour. That road wound through abandoned cornfields and small ghost towns no one remembered anymore. It was the kind of place where civilization seemed to have given up. Then I saw it, red taillights up ahead, barely visible through the fog. At first, I felt relieved. Another driver, another awake person on this forgotten stretch of the world. I accelerated slightly to get closer, keeping a safe distance. It was a dark sedan, maybe from the 1980s or 1990s, with those square taillights characteristic of that era. It was going slowly, unusually slowly, perhaps 40 kilometers per hour. I waited a couple of minutes to see if he'd speed up, but he didn't. I decided to pass him. I signaled, even though there was no one else for miles, and started to move into the left lane. But just as I was about to be side by side with the car, something made me stop. The windows were completely fogged up, all of them, from the inside, and there were no plates. The space where the rear license plate should have been was empty, just a rusty metal rectangle. I slid back into my lane, keeping my distance. A cold sweat began to run down my back. Something in my gut screamed at me not to pass that car. For the next 10 minutes, I simply followed. The sedan maintained that constant, unnatural speed. It never swerved, never accelerated or braked. It just moved in a perfectly straight line through the fog. I tried turning the radio back on, searching for any signal, but all I found was static that seemed to form unintelligible whispers. Then, without warning, the car's brake lights came on. It came to a complete stop in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, my heart pounding against my ribs. We sat like that, motionless, for what seemed like minutes but was probably only seconds. Fog swirled around both vehicles. I could hear my own breathing, rapid and shallow. Then the driver's door opened. I can't explain the terror I felt at that moment. No one came out. The door simply opened and stayed that way, swaying slightly in a breeze I couldn't feel. Through the fogged-up windshield, I couldn't see anything, only darkness. A darkness deeper than the night around it. I put my car in reverse. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold the steering wheel. I backed up a few feet, then swerved, partially leaving the paved road onto the gravel. The tires squealed. I didn't care. I accelerated, circling the sedan into the adjacent field, the dry plants rattling against my car. I didn't look back until I was back on the road, several meters ahead. When I finally checked my rearview mirror, the sedan had disappeared. Completely. The road behind me was empty, just fog and darkness. I arrived home 40 minutes later, shaking. The next day, I compulsively checked the local news. Nothing about accidents or abandoned cars on that road. I called the county police, and they told me they hadn't received any reports of any stopped vehicles that night. To this day, I drive 2 extra hours to get on the interstate. I never go back to that road, not even during the day, because sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder who or what was driving that car, and even more terrifying, what would have happened if I had passed them. 3 months after this incident, another driver reported seeing a dark sedan without license plates on the same road. He did attempt to pass. His car was found a week later, abandoned on the side of the road, with all the windows fogged up from the inside. The driver was never found. My name is David, and I've been a truck driver for 15 years. I've seen a lot of strange things on the roads, But nothing prepared me for what happened on Nevada's Route 50, the highway they call the loneliest road in America. And after what I experienced, I understand why it earned that name. It was February 2021, around 3 a.m. I was hauling construction equipment from Salt Lake City to Carson City. Route 50 is brutal. 180 kilometers of absolute nothingness. No gas stations, no restaurants, barely any self-service. Just desert, dark mountains, and the thermometer read -4 degrees Celsius. The kind of cold that seeps through every crack in the cabin, no matter how high you turn up the heat. There was a snowstorm forecast, but I was confident I could beat it. I was listening to a podcast about unsolved cases when I saw it. A figure on the side of the road. A woman, standing next to the 39-mile marker. She was wearing a white dress. No coat, no shoes. Just that thin dress, billowing in the icy desert wind. I slammed on the brakes immediately. The truck squealing and skidding slightly on the thin layer of ice that was beginning to form. What the hell was anyone doing out there? I'd die of hypothermia in less than an hour. I stopped the truck about 20 meters ahead and jumped out of the cab, grabbing the emergency thermal blanket from behind the seat. The wind hit me like a solid fist. I could see my breath forming thick clouds in front of my face. Ma'am, ma'am. I shouted, running towards her. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring out into the dark desert, his black hair whipping violently in the wind. As I got closer, I felt something that stopped me in my tracks. The air around her was different, colder, not cold from the weather, but from something else, the kind of cold you feel in your bones, in your soul. And she couldn't hear the wind near her. Everything was silent. Ma'am, you need to get warm, I said, my voice sounding strange and muffled. I held the blanket out toward her. Slowly, very slowly, he turned his head toward me. And when I saw his face, every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. His eyes were completely black. Not just the pupils, the whole eye, and his skin. God, his skin had a grayish, almost blue hue, like someone who'd been in icy water too long. But the worst were his lips. They curved into a smile, but it wasn't a human smile. It was too wide, too perfect, as if someone had carved that expression into his face. He opened his mouth. No voice came out, but I could read his lips. It's cold in here. I backed away, tripping over my own feet. The blanket fell to the ground between us. She took a step toward me. Then another. Her bare feet made no sound on the gravel and ice. I ran. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I ran back to my truck faster than I'd ever run in my life. My clumsy fingers could barely grasp the door handle. I finally managed to open it, jumped in, and locked it. When I looked in the side mirror, she was right next to the truck. I hadn't seen her move. She was just there, staring at me through the window, that unnatural smile still plastered on her face. I put the truck in first gear and accelerated. The tires spun for a second before gaining traction. I drove. I didn't check the mirror for at least 20 kilometers, my heart pounding, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. When I finally dared to look back, the road was empty, completely deserted. I kept driving until I found a gas station in Fallon, almost 2 hours later. I parked under the brightest lights I could find and just sat there, shivering, until the sun came up. Later that morning, I called Nevada Highway Patrol to report what I'd seen. The officer on the other end of the line was silent for a moment. Then he asked, "Around mile marker 39? "Yes," I replied. "Why?" "There have been other reports," he said finally. "No one knows who or what she is, but it's always mile marker 39, and she's always dressed in white." He never told me more. He hung up shortly after. I've tried to investigate on my own, but there are no official records, only rumors, whispers among truck drivers in cafes at 2 a.m. Everyone tells variations of the same story. Now I take longer routes to avoid Route 50. I add hours to my commute. I spend more on fuel. I don't care, because sometimes on especially cold nights, I can still see those pitch black eyes when I close mine. And I wonder, if I hadn't run, what would she have wanted from me? Milepost 39 of Route 50 is exactly 180 kilometers from the nearest town in any direction. Historically, that stretch of road has had an unusually high number of fatal accidents during the winter months. Most involved drivers who apparently drove off the road for no apparent reason, as if they were distracted by something. My name is Jennifer, and this story begins with something we all do but know we shouldn't. Texting while driving. It was August 2020, and I was returning to Austin after a weekend with friends in San Antonio. It was almost 11 p.m. when I got on I-35, and traffic was surprisingly light. I'd been texting with my boyfriend, Michael, all day. We were planning to move in together, and there were some details we needed to work out. I know I shouldn't have done it. I know the risks, but I just looked at my phone for a few seconds at a time, keeping one eye on the road. Or so I thought. My phone vibrated. Michael again. I reached the phone in the cup holder, kept my other hand on the wheel, and unlocked the screen. The message said, "Stop." I frowned. What for? I typed quickly while looking ahead. What for? The answer came immediately. Stop the car, now. A chill ran down my spine. I looked at the road. Everything seemed normal. Red taillights ahead, headlights approaching from the opposite direction. I wrote, "Why? What's going on?" "Jen, stop the car now. Please." My heart started racing. Michael never wrote with such urgency. Something was wrong. But what? I looked around again. Nothing out of the ordinary. I decided to call him. I dialed his number. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. Strange. His phone was never off. I tried again. Same result. Another message came in. "Don't call. Just stop. Please." Now she was really scared. Was this some kind of joke? Had someone hacked her phone? But the tone, it sounded exactly like how he typed. The same expressions, the same patterns. With trembling hands, I began to slow down. I activated my signal and headed toward the shoulder. It was then that it hit me. I hadn't seen another car in the last few minutes. The road, which had been jammed with traffic moments before, was completely empty. My phone vibrated again. "Don't look in the mirror." What? Instinctively, my eyes moved to the rearview mirror. There was nothing, just darkness. But not the normal darkness of a summer night. It was something deeper, more solid, as if the night itself had condensed into a mass behind my car. And it was moving. He was approaching. "Accelerator!" The message appeared in capital letters. I hit the accelerator. My little Honda leaped forward, the engine roaring, the speedometer needle climbed. 100, 120, 140 kilometers per hour. I checked the mirror again. Darkness followed me, staying just beyond the reach of my taillights. Tears streamed down my face. What the hell was going on? Was I having some kind of nervous breakdown? Was there something in my drink at the party? Get out at the next exit. Lights. You need lights. The exit sign appeared. 3 kilometers. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my fingers turned white. The darkness behind me seemed to grow, expand, as if it wanted to swallow me. When I finally reached the exit, I almost drove off the road, turning too fast. I drove down the ramp toward a brightly lit gas station. The parking lot was full of cars and trucks. Normal people doing normal things, filling up their gas tanks, buying snacks. I stopped directly under the brightest light, right in front of the store's glass doors. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I checked the rearview mirror. The darkness had stopped at the edge of the parking lot, where the lights ended. It just stood there, pulsing, waiting. Then, slowly it began to recede. It dissolved into the normal night, as if it had never been there. My phone vibrated one last time. "You're safe? Don't drive alone at night for a while. I love you." With trembling fingers, I tried calling Michael again. This time he answered on the first ring. "Hello? Jen? What's up?" Her voice sounded sleepy, confused. "Michael, the messages, were you texting me?" "What? No, honey. I fell asleep about an hour ago watching TV. Are you okay? You sound upset. I told him everything. I checked my phone to show him the messages. They were there. All of them. Sent from his number. But he swore he hadn't sent them. That his phone had been on the nightstand the whole time. That night, I stayed in a hotel next to the gas station. I couldn't bring myself to get back on the road. The next day, I drove home during the day with Michael on speakerphone the whole way. We never found out who sent those messages. The phone company confirmed they came from Michael's phone, but he never sent them. There's no logical explanation. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. 2 weeks later, I found a news story online. A car had been found abandoned on I-35, exactly on the stretch where I was driving that night. It was in the middle of the road, with the doors open. There was no sign of the driver. The car had been there for hours before anyone found it. Estimated time of departure, 11:05 p.m., exactly when I received the first message. Was it coincidence? Maybe, but I know what I saw in that mirror. And I know that's something. Someone saved me that night. I don't know who or what it was, or why they used Michael's phone to contact me. I just know that I don't drive at night anymore. And I never, ever text while driving. Because sometimes when I'm alone and look at my message list, I see that conversation from that night. And at the end, there's one more message I don't remember reading at the time. It simply says, "I won't always be able to warn you." Jennifer saved screenshots of that conversation. Digital forensics experts confirmed that the messages were genuinely sent from Michael's device, 3 hours before his phone was even turned on that day.